There is proof that Kenny Veach walked past the M Cave multiple times, and yet only on one hike he noticed it. What's really going on there, and why is he hiding hiking footage from us? Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M Cave mystery. So you might be wondering, how do we know Kenny has been out in the area multiple times? Well, I've got proof to share with you, and it's in regard to Kenny's M Cave hike video back on his YouTube channel. When you listen in carefully, the way he describes his previous hikes, and when you start to tally it up, it comes at around 4 times out there, and possibly as a maximum 5 times. And when you listen to what he also said in his unreleased M Cave hike footage, it just doesn't make sense. When it comes to knowledge and being out in that environment, one should know the distance, the time, etc. More of that will make sense later on in this video, but be sure to stick around. You don't want to miss a single bit. I just like to say, first of all, welcome if you're currently here during the live premiere. You can share your live reactions in the chat box on the right side of the screen. And be sure to drop your additional comments, thoughts, questions, answers, theories down below under the video, as it will help with spreading awareness, starting new discussions, and you can just let me know where you stand with the case and the one hike video by Kenny. What happened to all the others? Beside that, if you don't want to miss out on anything else regarding to Kenny Veach M Cave, I've got a full playlist of coverage, and that's available top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. If you click on it, you'll get the drop down box with the playlist and some loose videos if you do need to catch up. And there is a PayPal link, channel membership link in the pinned comments under the video if you want to support the channel. So in regard to Kenny Veach going out there multiple times and me roughly counting it, almost at a minimum 4 times, and that's in regard to his recorded hike, his supposed unrecorded hike when he went missing, and then 2 other times before October of 2014. He does make reference to it in his hike video. So I'm going to play to you one of the most important pieces of audio. Be sure to listen in as he's talking.
And I've got to follow it, and it gets real narrow, and then it starts turning into cliffs and stuff that I got to start climbing down. It gets a little hairy. But I've done it 2 other times, so I know I can get through. And then it just drops down out into the flat desert. All of a sudden, boom, you're out of the mountains.
Hopefully you are able to hear it clearly. In regard to the location of where he was at when talking, he had gone over Wild Horse Pass, which is north, dropped on down into the next canyon, and as he's panning the camera around, he's looking onwards, which is somewhat west, and that's known as Picture Canyon. And furthermore, the reason why this is important, beside him saying he's been down there 2 other times, is that in his recorded video, what you're watching, that's his 3rd time out there. And that's not including his final one in November, which would make it 4. And the possibilities of another one making it 5. So you can see the frequency when going out there. You should be more familiar with the area, the location, and more importantly, tracking the M Cave. But the real question is, on which of his hikes, which involved going down Picture Canyon, did he truly come across the M Cave? Was it his first time out there, his 2nd hike, or his 3rd? Well, depending on the order of things, he's been out there 2 other times, so it was his 1st or 2nd hike. You'd anticipate it to be his 2nd hike when going down Picture Canyon, because then it would make sense for his 3rd hike, his recorded one, to show him on a mission trying to relocate it. But it makes you wonder, the very first time when he did go down Picture Canyon, why did he not see it? Now, some of you might be wondering, how do we know that the M Cave is even down Picture Canyon? Well, a bit earlier on in that footage, what I just played to you, he also made reference to the location of where it's supposed to be. Just listen on in right now.
There's big mountains over there. There's a few caves over there, but that's not where I found it. out that direction is the direction I'm heading down here.
So when he's referring to down here, he means Picture Canyon West. Before that, when he mentions there are caves elsewhere over the mountains, that's more like over Jeremy Guzzo, a little bit more southwest. And over those mountains, a little Jeremy Canyon on the other side, where it's a bit more flat of the land, you've got the other side of the mountains and the canyons which go up, kind of like what Jeff Clark did and really Robin. And there's been the odd cave captured on camera over there, and SB more so in recent times. So it's very interesting, the dynamics, how Kenny Veach has referred to other locations of interest, but he's firmly in his beliefs at the time, but it's actually down Picture Canyon. And whilst he was unsuccessful in his October hike, it did make me wonder, was Kenny trying to drop clues as a form of misdirection, where he says the cave isn't? Could that mean that that's where it is? It depends how you look at it. But to be honest, when it comes to Picture Canyon, it is a hotspot area for potential M-shaped caves, even if they are shallow. And some other caves which only one hiker like Jeff Clark noticed, caught on camera, and others haven't since. So depending on timing and daylight, what shows, what's uncovered and what's concealed after, could that determine one's overall experience? We do have to acknowledge that when Kenny Veach was out there in the earlier days when hiking, he supposedly had no clue what the M cave was or the mystery at all. So kind of clueless, he was just hiking, taking in nature, and when he least expected it, that's when he came across a supposed hidden cave. And then past that point, when going back out there to prove to people online and that he knew of the location roughly, and it should have been easy, as he worded himself, he just wasn't able to locate it. So was it covered up? Was it filled in? Was something taken away? Was the land manipulated and it confused him? Or was he simply giving the wrong location and it was as a means of misdirection? As I said, there's different outlooks and ways you can look at it. Be sure to drop a comment down below. But just for the general basic theme of doing the hike, being familiar with it, the distance and time, even that simple thing Kenny Veach wasn't really aware of, which is kind of strange. If you listen in to his unreleased footage, it will make sense.
And then I walked out all along that whole canyon, over that, and then down that side, and then I walked, after I went down, and then I traveled all the way, after in the canyon, all the way across the backside of that mountain, and that is one large mountain range. And then I traveled all the way down and around this, and then I came up from down there, and then I came all the way up here to my truck. So I'm gonna go check out my map and find out how far I hiked just now.
You would think the more times you do something, the more familiar you are with it, the location, the visuals, even the time and the distance, yet that doesn't seem to be the case for Kenny. The only counterpoint you could suggest is, whilst he's gone down Picture Canyon multiple times, his other part of his hike route to get there could have differed maybe. One argument to support that is when Kenny Veach was referring to one of his hikes out there in which he had to return to the highway to be picked up, possibly going down Picture Canyon after coming down Sheep Peak. Let me show you the footage right now. In context to this, what I'm going to show you is from his hike video once again, but at the start, the beginning, when he was at the mine shaft. This is what totals the amount of times he's been out there. Make sure to listen in.
The last time I came up here, I hiked up to the top of what they call Gas Peak, and I spent the night. It was a 2-day hike, and then I hiked all the way down to another valley over here and went past this mountain range you see on my right, all the way back out to the flat desert. So I slept up in these mountains, and it's pretty high. I think that's about, it's like 9,000 feet up there. And it's the camera just doesn't do it justice, but I slept on one of those peaks. I think that's the peak I slept on, and then I came down in the morning, and it took me quite a while to get out of this mountain range, and I walked almost all the way back to the highway, and my girlfriend picked me up, so it was a long trip. I was pretty wore out and beat up.
When listening to Kenny Veach's descriptions, whilst mistakes are made and he does exaggerate, it can also make you question what's real and what's not, and what's practical and possible. What you're looking at on screen right now is a bit of a history of the hikes that Kenny Veach have done in some way or another, and it is colour-coded. So just as a brief overview, the one highlighted in blue, as you see there, with the blue lines and the blue marker, is the last clip you just listened to when Kenny was out there up, as he called it, Gas Peak, which is actually around Sheep Peak. Then, in terms of the hike in red, is his October hike. That red outline. It doesn't follow all the way around because I didn't want it to overlap, but you're familiar with that hike route where it goes up green and around down the canyon there, Picture Canyon, and back up to his vehicle. In red, that's his October hike, in which you just seen that video before from his YouTube channel. And in terms of what's in orange is the supposed other hike which Kenny did at some point when he came across the MK for the very first time in that area, or so, where he believes it to be. And then in terms of what's highlighted in green, which does not cover the full length, but for good reason with this exception, because it only goes from where his vehicle is parked to the mine shaft. That was his final hike, November 10th, when his scent ended, and it didn't seem to go on any further. We're going to do it bit by bit. In what order exactly? Well, we'll do the green one last, with that being his final hike. Before that, you got the October one. Then before that, you probably would expect the blue one. And then before that, his first encounter with the M Cave, possibly. It depends which way you look at it and the order of things. But don't worry, there will be future videos, because likely I will pick up on more things. So let's just do one at a time so it's not too overwhelming. The reason why I've got it highlighted in different ways is the likelihood of how he got there. You've got to take in consideration that Kenny Veach said he had to go back to the highway to be picked up by his girlfriend. To be picked up implies he didn't have a vehicle with him at the time. So when he actually was dropped off at a certain hiking spot, he was driven by his girlfriend. So that's kind of interesting, right? So we don't know exactly where, but you got like the highway here. So we just go on street level. Hopefully the rendering is okay. US 95 heading down that way to eventually cut off over there. I think it might have been Corn Creek Road or so, to get to the mountains. But from what angle or area was Kenny Veach dropped off? Up Joe May Road, or more likely Pine Nut Road? You saw it highlighted in blue as examples. I don't know the exact hike route that Kenny did, but I just wanted to give you examples, the possibilities of it. And other hikers can chip in as well in the comment section below if you feel the need to. But going down the highway to get to the location, let's click that off for a second. To cut off here, in which you've got a road, Corn Creek, which goes to the Desert National Wildlife Refuge. There's a few markers over there which you could possibly look at. Nice view, very open, straight long road. You see the mountain range over there. That's likely the way Kenny's girlfriend was driving Kenny. And then, once getting further down to the Desert National Wildlife Refuge Centre, DNWR, Corn Creek Visitor Centre, it doesn't allow you to go on street level any further past this point. But you could either go right there. Gas Peak is over that way, which Kenny Veach thought was the other way, but that's Sheep Peak. He got them mixed up together. Highlighted over there will be Pine Nut Road. Turning left here will eventually get you to Joe May Road, which is harder to see now because it's more faint, the ground. Right? You can just briefly see it. and it winds in and out all the way down there to where Kenny Veach could have parked up, or where Kenny Veach was dropped off to get to this point here. Dropped off somewhere down here, or maybe at the DNWR centre, depends if Sharon and what vehicle she had at the time to get Kenny from point A to point B. But then when parked up, Kenny Veach got out likely. And the reason why I'm interpreting it as Kenny Veach was dropped off is because at the end he was picked up. And if Kenny Veach had his own vehicle with him, he wouldn't need picking up, unless the exception is his vehicle broke down, so he needed his girlfriend to pick him up. However, Kenny didn't give that context, so we're not to know. Roughly this area, looking back that way, it says Jermay Canyon, it's Jermay Road, Little Jermay Canyon up there, which is highlighted in green. But to get to Sheep Peak, which way would Kenny have gone? Possibly, you got different canyons here. The one that way looked rather steep. When you get a bit higher up, it doesn't seem as accessible, in my opinion. It looks rather demanding. And depending the age Kenny was around the time of when he went out there, like that bit there, it looks very impractical. I could be wrong, but looks can be deceiving. It just doesn't look too good. So the only other thing I'm thinking of is Blackgate Canyon, which just happens to be the area fast forward onwards in 2021 when a private search team was looking for a missing person. Commander known as Kenneth Yeager supposedly found a femur bone, later turned out to be an animal. But who was that missing person? Was it Kenny Veach or somebody else? Nevertheless, if it was a missing person up that way, at some point Kenny Veach may have used this route to get to Sheep Peak, or close to Sheep Peak. It's quite wide, the canyon lower down, and then as you get further on up, it does get more narrow. I'll just go slowly, just so you're familiar with the area. Apologies if it does flash a little bit, that's just the visual glitches by Google. Nothing I can do about that. If you see any caves, anything of interest, you can let me know. Blackgate Canyon. Okay. Does get a bit steeper, of course, up here. Check. And you can leave, timestamps down below if you notice anything of interest. And then this bit here, it does look a bit steep in that gap. As it bends around, you work your way up there. To get on the side of the ridge. And then you go up and down, which maybe isn't possible, but this is just a possibility, that's all. I said I'm no expert. Up and down to get to roughly where Kenny Veach hiked out. Take in mind, Jay Chuck would have more knowledge with this, because when Jay Chuck was searching for Kenny, at some point he did go up Sheep Peak. So that could be of great use. If anyone does know or reach out to Jay Chuck, share him this video because he can give additional backstory, I'm sure. Roughly around his peak. So it's before Sheep Peak where it's officially listed at on the maps. And this kind of falls in line with when looking down there at the mine shaft, which Kenny Veach was pointing up at. If you look back at the clip what I just showed you earlier. It's kind of in line with one another. And then Kenny said he went back down a canyon, which you could interpret as Pitcher Canyon, back to the highway. Now, we can get to that in just a second. If that's not possible, as in the route what I've just shown you, as I said, if you go back to the DNWR, here, Refuge Centre, if you turn right there, and you follow it down, I don't think there's ground level. No, there isn't. There is little dots on the ground, but it won't allow you to click on it, I believe. Oh, that one might. Oh boy, who's this? Profile picture of the TARDIS. Right, okay, so I can't remember which way we're looking at the moment, but you can get an idea of the road, the quality of it. Mounds on the side, piled up all the way down. Loose rocks and stone, some track marks, of course, from this vehicle and maybe others beforehand. Heading that way, which might be Pine Knot Road, I can't tell because it doesn't give the directions, which is a bit silly. It kind of flips the image also when you're trying to zoom on in, which is kind of throws you off a little bit. But if it is up this way, this is what SB did at one point when he was going up Pine Nut Road to eventually get to some satellite installation site where there was a giant X on Google satellite imagery to clear that up. Scott Natal also went up Pine Nut Road when searching for Kenny Veach, and whether it be by what Scott said or somebody else online, but Kenny Veach's scent was found over that way, which didn't make sense. Official news articles didn't seem to confirm that, but it was mentioned at some point online, which is in a completely different direction to where the M Cave is supposed to be. So, get an idea, the visual look of the place. I'm guessing over that way, the mountain range is over where Jermay Canyon is, Jermay Road. Let's back out this for a second. Just wanted to show you what it looks like ground view. Apologies, maybe it rotated the camera so we were looking the opposite way, the way we came. That's what I meant. I was facing that way, but it reversed it the other way. It's so stupid. You got Yucca Gap this way. And if you follow it, it does wind in and out the road. Rotate the screen just a little bit. And then, where does the road branch off? Yeah. The dirt road continues round and bends, turnaround point, and goes on over that way. But here, there's like a wash. So it depends how far up one was to drive, as in Sharon Pilgrim, and then how far Kenny Veach was willing to hike himself up to close to Sheep Peak. Right? So at this point where I've got it highlighted, you'd have to be walking. You wouldn't be able to use a vehicle from the looks of it. It appears to be a wash area and quite open on lower ground. And then kind of splits off to the right, but it does appear a little bit steep over that way. If you can see, doesn't seem accessible whatsoever, especially there in the areas. So taking that into consideration, going left up there, known as Long Valley, and working your way up, kind of narrow in some places. Rotate around if you notice anything of interest, if there's any caves or anything. Moving on up around here, we bend around. I said narrow, but possible, maybe, up to a certain point. Let's allow you to take it in visually. As for the total distance, well, we can save that for a separate video because there is something that I do need to go over. But this is just to put into perspective the areas where he supposedly covered at some point in which he eventually did come down Pitcher Canyon and where the supposed location is. But yeah, there is quite a climb up there, as you see. But compared to some of the other areas, maybe a bit more possible. I'm not saying that this is the only way, I'm not saying that it is the way, but just throw it out there for suggestion. A lot of trees and vegetation, concealment as well. Slowly working up, and I'll just zoom in out, just make it a little bit quicker for you. See Sheep Peak just over there. Turn off points as well, other opportunities to branch out and go further. But I'm just using this one as an example. Reaching the top here, maybe. I don't know, for me it doesn't seem possible this point. It looks a bit too steep. But of course there is a way up because hikers have been here. I don't know if it's a fair statement to say, but probably over time there's more reason for hikers to go to Sheep Peak than there is to go through Little Jermay Canyon. Sheep Peak, even if it is more demanding and hard, in some ways there's more of a magnetizing effect. You get a nice view when up there. When you're going through Little Jermay Canyon, if it's not for the M Cave or Kenny Veach, what other reason are you going there for? You can say nature, beauty, the peace, the quiet, but you can get that elsewhere. And the people that have mentioned it as positives as to what it's like there, calming and peaceful, they're still there for the mission of trying to find Kenny, M Cave and clues along the way. There is a key motive, which encourages people out there to some extent, and the mine shaft as well, or at a certain point. Anyway, finally reaching up here. after that long journey. You could possibly go on further down there on ground level and follow the road closer to Sheep Peak and hike your way up that way. You could even go around the back further on. But that was just a quick little one there. Just possible routes highlighted in blue where he could have gone, Kenny, to get to up into the mountains. I don't think I'll be able to find it on the spot, but over this way on ground level is where that big X was. I said I wouldn't be able to find it on the spot, and the image quality would have changed with time. But nevertheless, quite an area to cover. But Kenny did say he came down it, he descended into a canyon. So would he have come down on this side to get down to the mine shaft, or to get down to Wild Horse Pass, as you see here? Wild Horse Pass. Up there somewhere is where Kenny Veach camped, hiked an overnight stay. And he came down. Was it up that canyon there? Or is that way too steep? Because how he's describing it, or how he did, implied that on the way back he went down a canyon such as the Picture Canyon. And if so, you'd have to come down on this side. I'm just wondering, out of the ravines, the canyons, which one would he have come down? Which one would have been the more forgiving and the most likely? Because they all look very steep to me, unless there's an alternative way. You got Wagon Spring there as well. You leave a comment down below. Right? So, and when at the mine shaft, for example, you see highlighted there, that is facing north. That over there is facing east. So when Kenny Veach was panning the camera around saying, oh yeah, up there on the peaks, it's about 70 feet up high. I think he said like 9,000, and others have said, no, it's about 6,000. Kenny over-exaggerated. Well, at that moment when Kenny was referring to it, he was facing east, and that's what it looks like on satellite imagery, and the mark of the peak up there is roughly where he hiked out and came down, probably on the other side of Wild Horse Pass to go down Picture Canyon. And if he went down Picture Canyon, right, he would have come across the selection of potential M caves, as you see where the rock formation is there on ground level, where the other weird shaped cave was adjacent, parallel. And then the Jeff Clark one around this area too. So this is where Kenny came across the cave and later believed it to be here, so he came back. Well, when he went for that overnight hike, before his October one, at least, he walked down this area from the looks of it, but he didn't find the cave, he didn't mention or bring it up. At least on the surface level, when you hear how he words it. Oh yeah, I went up to Sheep Peak, I came down Picture Canyon, and I got picked up by my girlfriend, the end. Right, so then what hike, when did he come across the cave? Does it matter when he came across the cave? To some extent, yes, but what's more important is how many times did he come down here? And from the looks of it, at a minimum, including his October one, he's been down here at least 3 times. And only one of the times he came across the M cave. So what the hell is going on there? If you used to include, like, his final hike, that would be a 4th time, but in terms of his scent, it didn't imply he went any further past the mine shaft over Wild Horse Pass, so I don't really include that properly, but at least multiple times down Picture Canyon, so he should be familiar with the area, and if this is where the cave is, supposedly, he should have been able to nail it, and yet he wasn't able to. So when coming down Picture Canyon and then heading back towards the highway, in which direction would he have gone? Straight down that way or tailed back onto Jermay Road, following down the road to get to the DNWR and then onto the highway? So Kenny Veach, hitchhiking on the highway? Why would Kenny Veach need to be picked up on the highway when there is a bloody road which goes up closer to the hiking area? Is it because Sharon didn't want to get her tyres dirty? Is it because she didn't have the suitable vehicle to get down there? Well, just as a quick heads up, this is the highway which Kenny described as he was picked up on. If he was picked up on the highway, does that mean he was also dropped off at the highway? Because if you're going to be dropped off closer to the area, you might as well be picked up in that same location too, yet that didn't seem to be the case. And it's the excuse of, well, Sharon, her vehicle, her tyres don't want to get dirty or muddy. Well, this is normal, I don't know if you call it asphalt or tarmac. This is a nice road, isn't it? You can clearly see. Back that way, it's going on to the highway, which Kenny Veach may have been hanging around here on the side to be picked up. Was he dropped off as well earlier? Who knows? But the girlfriend could have just drove down Corn Creek Road, right? It's a normal road, normal for vehicles. Is that a cattle grid? I can't remember. It must be like some kind of cattle grid, maybe animals. I don't know. There's a fence line, maybe. But yeah, driving down there. You can only go so far down. Eventually reaching the DNWR. So, why would Kenny have to cover all that distance to the highway when Sharon can reduce it? Weird. Did Kenny Veach want it that way? Did Sharon make it that way? You let me know what you think. Closing that down, which is a little bit unusual in some ways. If we refer to the other supposed hike, which Kenny did at some point in order to come across first encounter with the M Cave down this way. His first encounter with the M Cave, what hike was that exactly? And in what order too? He didn't give a date or time for that. The only reason why we know it's October supposedly October from his videos, because that's when he uploaded it. And as for the November one, well, that was because it was officially reported and confirmed. But besides the official report, any earlier hikes which Kenny had described vaguely, he did not give a date or a time or a year, so it could be close together or it could be spread far apart. In some regards, you'd expect it to be closer together, so there'd be more of an urgency to prove to himself, to prove to other people online, because if it's something big, exciting, he's nervous, he's got full of emotion, passion, you wouldn't be delaying it or stalling, you'd be getting out there as soon as possible once again, or at least talking about it in the span of time. So that's what I'm thinking. So besides his first encounter with the cave, and then the one highlighted in blue, his red highlighted one, where he started off down here, roughly, and parked up, which you saw in the unreleased footage as well when he made it back. Hiking up that way, as you're very familiar with by now. And then he starts his video here at the mine shaft when narrating, panning around the area, describing the mountains and what's in the distance and what's nearby, what he's done previous up there and how he had to come back down and go down the canyon, which implies Picture Canyon. Then Kenny going over Wild Horse Pass after the pinion nut picking, low ground here, refers to over that way as caves, but he's going down this way where he believes the cave is, which is Picture Canyon. Coming on down, familiar with the area because he's already been down here 2 other times. And which of those 2 times did he come across the cave? Selection of M-shaped caves, and a covered one, and Kenny says it's on ground level, kind of like here. Kind of like here. But he just walks by. Why? Was he truly aware of the area, or was he a little confused? And whilst Kenny did appear a little bit nervous in this area, and there was paranormal activity caught on camera further down this way, which is the narrow part of Picture Canyon, like keep going, don't stop, or don't move, and follow the red tape, weird whispers like that, and you can hear it almost word for word. And he finally gets out and he says, well, I didn't find it, and it should have been easy to find, right? Wasn't able to locate it, easy to find, but he also originally described it as hidden. And if it's hidden, it would mean it's hard to find. So on the occasion when you did come across it, even though it's hard to find, likely he found it by chance, by luck. because he didn't even know about it at the time. He just randomly came across it. But surely he was spelunking, as he would describe it, to encounter such a cave like that. Because if you're just simply walking, you're not going to enter anything. And if you're not going to enter anything, you wouldn't know what it is. And then Kenny came all the way back and then to his vehicle. And in terms of the distance, 10, 11 miles. And, you know, you can do that on Google Earth just by measuring it very quick. You don't always need to use manual papered maps. You can just use Google Earth, Google Maps. And you'd think Kenny Veach would have already done that, possibly, if he had already been out there twice or 3, 4 times. He's an experienced hiker. He should know what he's doing. But in terms of how he presents himself in words, it doesn't seem that way. There might be some exceptions here and there, but, you know, if you're going out there to prove it to people that something does exist, you want to be a little bit professional, keep it together, show it visually, the location, the distance, the time, just in case anyone else wanted to go out there and you wanted to teach people along the way, just like how SB does and some other hikers too. It does help, and it can make it safer for other people. If you fantasize and advertise it in such a good, spooky, mysterious way, but you don't give the clear facts, some people may go out there unprepared and it could go wrong. And okay, you don't have to take the responsibility yourself, of course, but if you're going to put a place on the map, at least give a bit of context, I would say. For Kenny Veach's position and role as passionate about hiking and going out there by himself or with people, you'd think you'd be considerate of that, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Now, in terms of his final hike out there, his 4th or his 5th hike is November 10th. Kenny Veach, where he parked his vehicle down here, Red Rock Search and Rescue found it, and then used dogs, sniffer dogs, to track his scent. Not his phone, but the scent. And it led all the way up to the mineshaft. But the problem is, his scent ended at the mineshaft from what the team had mentioned and the news reports. If the scent had ended at the mineshaft and Kenny Veach was intending on relocating the M Cave, and if that just happens to be Picture Canyon, Kenny, on this occasion, didn't even get the chance to reach that spot. And that's what makes it more worrying. Was it against his will? That's something that happened to him. He wanted to go on further over Wild Horse Pass, whether that's down Picture Canyon, whether that be 45 miles onwards north, as he originally claimed to his nephew Hunter if he didn't find the cave, or as Jeff Clark would say, 6, 7 miles onwards, realistically. If Kenny was determined, and he did have an alternative camera with him from what the girlfriend had said in a different comment, and Kenny was willing to return back to give his nephew Hunter a surprise, as the text messages show. And even though Kenny had a firearm with him, he did on his October hike for protection. There's no hard evidence of ending one's life or remains, bullet, blood, stuff like that. So it implied that Kenny Veach was truly trying to hike out there, but he couldn't go on any further. And for it to end at the mineshaft and for him not to be seen or found in the mineshaft at the time and onwards when hikers tried looking inside, what, he just vanished into thin air, or did he double back on himself to be picked up by someone? And if that was the case, is that very likely? Well, it's more likely knowing that Kenny Veach has already been picked up in a previous hike by his girlfriend at the highway. Maybe the same happened again. Because there is a bit of a pattern. There is a little pattern going on. I don't know if you've picked up on it, but I'll do a separate video on it. But, you know, it's just weird how his scent ended there. So at least 3 times he's been down Picture Canyon where the supposed cave is. His October hike, his first encounter with the M Cave, and then one other time, which could be when he was up there and he came on down the canyon as he described it. And, you know, even if you don't know the dates, the times, the months, etc., as Kenny said in his video, is October 1. He pointed, well, it's a canyon down there, and I've been down there 2 other times before. So you include the one that you're currently on, that makes it 3 times. 3 times of having the opportunity to walk by the supposed M Cave and only 1 time noticing it. So what happened on the 2 other hikes? What were the factors and themes as to why he didn't notice, come across it exactly? Because out of the 2 other hikes, 1, I'm guessing he was oblivious to it in the first place. And then the final one, the the final successful hike being he was aware, but he just couldn't locate it. It follows a certain order, I guess, with common sense, but it still is kind of strange, if you know what I mean. All in all, hopefully you found this video somewhat interesting. Whilst other routes have been done as for hikes by hikers onwards, like Jay Chuck, Jeff Clark, SB, Scott Natal, maybe Jay Silverheels, I thought, why not do one on Kenny Veach? And in some ways, maybe beforehand it wasn't possible because it's like, well, we've got his recorded hike and that's about it. We don't know of his other hikes, we don't know how many, really, and we don't know where exactly. Well, from interpretation and how I've done it now, I think it is possible. We can expand on it in the future. We can even focus in on one specific hike in the past and try and understand the perspective of Kenny, how he was thinking, how he was feeling, what was going through his mind, and was there anything else strange going on out there? Because the more times you're out there, besides the whole MK situation, the higher the chances that you might capture something strange on camera or even encounter it yourself. You go out one time, you could get lucky for the right or wrong reasons. But if you go out there more than once, the chances of something happening on one of the hikes increases. And is that why it applies to Kenny? Because he was out there 3 to 4 times minimum. So on at least one of them, he was bound to come across it, the M Cave. But it wouldn't explain why other hikers since who have been down Pitcher Canyon more than once, why they haven't encountered it. So there might be some unexplained factors and deeper reasons, but I just wanted to do a bit of a map analysis and to show to you that Kenny was aware of the area, and the whole map thing of distance is a little odd because he should technically know by then. With that being said, be sure to hit the like button, share the video so more people get to see it. If you want to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos, that'd be appreciated. And if you're on mobile device, down below in the comment section, you swipe across, there should be a hype button star. Feel free to click on it. That's much appreciated. My name's Warlike Ref. We'll see what happens next. Goodbye and good night for now.